Did you say you were from Prosthetics Association?
We?
Yeah.
No, we are from private organization.
Private organization. What's the private organization do?
We do the fabrication of processes, automated.
Sorry, the first word?
Processes.
Fabrication. Oh, okay. Using traditional techniques?
Traditional also.
Okay. So sometimes wood, plastic.
In fact, we left the traditional, but we also do traditional.
Okay. This is something that we are interested in. What is the standard for prosthetic in Nepal currently? What is the best thing that you can get, and how much does it cost?
The cost is depending upon the people's choice.
Yes, so let's say money, no problem. I have all the money.
No, we don't have such people yet.
Yeah. What is the best I can do for all the money?
Yeah, near about 20,000 if we go for the below knee transferial.
Oh, okay.
Average between 25,000 to 30,000. That's average one.
Okay, so I have a set in my office right now that we're printing for a young girl who is double amputee, and it's shoulder harness, hand, and type 20,000. She wants nothing to do with it. Her father buys it because he loves her and he wants her to have the best. And she says, "Oh, it makes my back hurt too much. Thank you, no." 20,000 rupees. Okay, I love you, no problem. But she doesn't use it. And he brought it to our office so that we could see that the things that she likes, she can rotate her wrist and lock. But other than that, the amount of force necessary to open the grip, 15-year-old girl is not doing this to open her hand. So 20,000 rupees is sitting in my office. They don't even call to come get it. It is garbage. It is junk. No good. And it's very nice set. It's very well made, engineering, it's high quality, but it is too much for this girl to use. And even though it is super high quality, if she cannot use it, it is no quality.
No, actually, operating process is, in my opinion, is a thankless job because we can't give 100% satisfaction.
Oh no, of course, it's always better to have your own. But she can't use it at all. I mean,
she's too heavy for her because she's, not very big. Something about her.
And she says, "I would rather have no hands than use it."
She made yes.
Yeah, yeah. And it is a nice set. I mean, it's really nice from an engineer's point of view. But the user, the girl that has to use it, no thank you.
Is that hardest control?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's strong. It's real, but that's why we were making this small, lightweight plastic one. It's simple, but she likes it better because it is lightweight. She's not carrying, a bag of bricks on her back every day, everywhere she goes. And that was her only concern. She likes it, so we're trying to sort of copy some of the motions and features. But we're having some difficulty with 3D printing because it is not metal. You can't really bang it out. And that's where we lose our expertise. We can 3D print, we understand the problem, but we don't have the training to make the bridge.
I'm gonna ask you to say all of that again.
Making conversation.
I think we're ready to get started. Okay, coming. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and start.
Hey, Matt, can we take a picture for posterity?
Yeah, we can totally take it as, yeah, we actually are live streaming this right now.
Oh, wow, that's.
To where?
Try to,
It's on YouTube, I guess.
try to keep the profanity to a minimum.
No, it's just a profanity class. Yeah, no, we don't want a boring YouTube channel, so. All right, this is for you and me. Okay. Well, there's a cup of tea. Sweet, are we ready? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So I just want to first thank Engineering Ada, for their hosting it for us. The organization I started, we're in the middle of building our headquarters in the Boston Park, so we don't have an office. So I want to thank the guys, Darpin and everybody from here, that are allowing us to hold the thing here. They're like live streaming this right now on the internet, so people can watch. I don't think anyone's gonna watch, but it's at least there. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, I just, the reason we wanted to hold this event, this workshop, was just to kind of share the information about 3D printed prostheses. Because I believe that 3D printed and robotics are kind of the way all prostheses are going to go in the future. They're cheap, they're customizable, they can be printed fairly quickly, and they're just a lot more functional for the same thing. So I don't know how long it's going to take, 5 years or 10 years, but I think that every prosthesis will ultimately be a 3D printed prosthesis or a robotic combination. I think that's coming in the very near future. It's already happening a lot. So that's kind of one of the main reasons we wanted to hold this event. Was just trying to get everybody on board and on the same page, because there's a lot of different people interested in prostheses and 3D printing prostheses and that sort of stuff. So there are challenges, whether it's having to hire a new staff to run a 3D printer and do 3D modeling. There's all of these sorts of tasks related to money that is maybe preventing some of us from actually doing printing prostheses. So we just wanted to kind of give a brief introduction to 3D printing, how it works, and then we also wanted to talk a little bit about where the technology is currently with 3D printed prostheses and robotic prosthetics, and kind of see if we can kind of form a community around it, because we're all, I know I'm personally interested, and I think everyone here is interested in it. So I think we can come together as a community of people who have access to this for very little money. So we're kind of looking to do stuff like that. That's why we're kind of holding this. So anyway, I'll tell you a little bit about my organization. I started this organization, I was here during the earthquakes, and then I was elected leader of like a grassroots relief campaign. We delivered relief all over. And then I went home and I said, what do we do now? And I was like hooked on working in disaster zones. So I started Disaster Hack. I mean, what we do in Disaster Hack is we promote the use of technology to relevant people. So, and all kinds of technology, from architectural technology, like our building that we're building is like a Balinese bamboo house. So we're trying to introduce bamboo architectural technology, so from Bali and different. So what we do is we import technology into different places. We teach people how to code. We outsource work to disaster zones and that sort of thing. So we are basically what we do is we hack disasters. So I'm a technology-based, an art-centered, based NGO. We're based out of San Francisco, so I come from a tech background. We promote the use of technologies, yeah, we teach people how to code, we print prostheses, we incubate startups. So we try to create businesses around tech. So we put students together and form businesses and companies, whether it's a 3D printing company or a drone footage company like these guys are running, which we're not related, but we try to put together technologies that create sustainable income and revenue for people. So that's kind of what we do. And so we're called Disaster Hack. So a hack, a lot of people have bad ideas about what a hacker is, but we are definitely hackers. But a hacker isn't necessarily somebody who's going to steal your money or bank accounts or something like that. But a hack is a procedure or a way of doing something, and it demonstrates either cleverness or ingenuity. It's like smart and creative. It solves a meaningful problem. It's not a common or well-known solution, and it may not be the straightforward or most appropriate solution. So a hacker is just trying to solve problems in a creative way, using unique tools. And 3D printing is kind of like a hack for prosthetics at the moment. So it's an interesting way to use the technology. So again, we are organizing this event because we think 3D printing and robotics are the future of prostheses. We want to share information. We're an open source. We believe in open source principles like information and data. We share everything. Our entire organization and everything is totally transparent. So, and what we also wanted to do is we wanted to form a community of prostheticists and techies to develop prostheses together. And so that's kind of why we are holding the event. Do we have enough chairs? Do we need some more chairs? And I also just wanted to take a minute to thank everybody for coming. That's awesome. And I also wanted to thank Brian. He's going to be sharing some of the information that he said. Darpin is going to be giving a brief 3D modeling demonstration, how to do 3D modeling. We're going to use the most simple programs available so that you can see how it operates pretty easy. So thank you for sharing information later. And then thank you, Amit, for coming in with stuff from the Victoria Hand Project. They get great prostheses. So I just wanted to thank everybody for coming in. So without further ado, let's go ahead and we'll start talking about 3D printers a little bit. Who's familiar or has everybody seen a 3D printer in action? Okay, so there is right around the corner, we've got one operating now. But what we're first going to do is talk about the types of 3D printers, because there's a lot of different types, and some of them are very expensive, $100,000 or 100 lakh. And some of them are very inexpensive. Like the one we have is very inexpensive. We bought it as a kit, and we assembled it and put it together ourselves, and it was only around $300. So it was $30,000, really inexpensive. Which is really cool. So let's go ahead and we'll talk about some of the different types. So I guess, I haven't tried to open this. What we're using and what most 3D printers are that are popularly being used are called fused deposition modeling. They're additive. So what they do is, here, we'll go ahead and click a link to a cool video that'll kind of explain this. You're going to open up. Okay, cool. And opening up here. Looks like the internet is really slow. Okay, so here's a brief introduction to the type of 3D printers that we're all probably going to be utilizing to make 3D prosthetics. That's additive. So what they do is they take a layer of plastic and they slowly add another layer on top and another layer on top and another layer on top. And until they come up with a complete object.
This is slower than this, which is what happens in real life.
What's that?
They've not seen one before, it goes a little slower in real life,
Yeah.
it's very slower.
Yeah, I think probably at this point you're looking at 3 hours at least of print time. It takes a long time to print a prosthetic. But what's really cool about them is you can design things that would not normally be able to be built by anything else. Because of the way they're shaped, you can create unique things that just you can't make by hand. So that's what's pretty cool. So this is, again, additive technology. That's evidently a shoe. Yeah, it's a shoe. It's like a lady's high heel. So some of the things over on the side, what you're seeing is some of the settings that they're using. So that took 15 hours to print. It tells you all the different specs. So the Ultimaker, you guys have Ultimakers too. Yeah, so these guys are using that very printer that we were just looking at. No, okay, stop. Okay, so that is the most popular. It's additive, where you're adding layers on top of layers on top of layers. It's called the FDM modeling, so fused deposition modeling. And you can use all kinds of materials. It's not just plastics anymore. It's a lot of different stuff. And the next kind is the second most popular, and it's not nearly as popular, but it's called SLA. And it's stereolithography. We'll go ahead and look at the thing here. And so this is a little bit different. They have basically a vat of liquid.
Stereolithography 3D printer. Today, we're going to take a look at how it works and put it to the test against parts from a computer-based machine.
So that's something they printed.
Let's start by taking a closer look at the printer. When we open up the light-blocking cover, we can see a build platform inside. This metal plate is where the parts are made. Underneath the build platform is a resin tank. This clear window gives the ultraviolet laser a path into the resin. To start a print, we'll upload a file and fill up the resin tank to the indicator line. You can see the laser passing back and forth inside, hardening the liquid plastic. We'll take our print out, wash it and resin off. The flower comes with supports on it, and we'll sit them off to finish these. Stereolithography is known for producing extreme detail with layers down to 4 times finer than a human hair. The Form 1 Plus lets us take advantage of a library of materials, so we made some other parts to show what these resins can do. The castable resin gives jewelers and engineers an inexpensive way to produce metal parts. This flexible resin is great for simulating different textures, and as we can see, this tough resin can really take a hit. Now let's compare how the Form 1 Plus parts stand up against the filament printer. The stereolithography part comes out nice and smooth, but we can see and feel the ridges on the cup printed with filament. When we break this sample piece, you can see that filament parts quickly snap along the layer line. The SLA process creates chemical bonds, so our print takes much more force. Today, we took a look at how stereolithography printers work, the types of resins we can print with, and what makes the parts stand out against other desktop machines. If you liked our intro to stereolithography.
Okay, so basically the way it works is you have a pool, like a little collection of resin. For the printed materials like this stuff, basically what it is a long string of plastic, like it's wound up like string. And this is a much different thing. They take liquid resin, and then what they do is they shine laser beams at it. And the laser beam hardens the plastic as it's pulled slowly out of the reservoir tank. So it's much more accurate, much more accurate. What they say, 4 times thinner than a human hair is how thin they can print. So they're much more expensive to buy, the printers, and they're much more expensive for the materials to print with. So they're kind of downside. So there's another one, it's very much like stereolithography. It's called digital light processing. digital light processing. Basically, it's the same thing. It hardens the plastic with light. So it shines the light on a piece of plastic and it hardens the same thing. And there's another one called selective laser sintering. This is a really cool technology, and you can use it for printing metals and a variety of other things. But this is pretty cool stuff too.
One of the biggest challenges in trying to make a garment using a 3D printer is that 3D printers create rigid, hard plastic. That has resulted in a lot of fashion designers creating gorgeous, futuristic pieces where they're making it a magazine, but if you were to wear them, it would feel like you're encased in this hard plastic case. Which is not what we're thinking about. We're really thinking about how can we take today's technology and actually produce a wearable garment.
This project actually started with an idea to create a bracelet that was made out of components that could print flat and then fold into three-dimensional. It'd be amazing to make something larger scale and compress. We take something large and three-dimensional and fold and flatten it using simulation to make it small enough to print in one piece.
That's pretty cool stuff.
So the basic idea behind this graph is that we created a large object from a 3D scan of a person that is much larger than a 3D printer. And then we've used a physics simulation to fold up the graph into a small form that can fit inside the machine's fabrication. So the entire idea of the hinges on when we take it actually it can unfold into a graph.
So this is, what you're looking at there is a sintered printer, and what it does is it has a big pile of powder, and it shoots lasers at a high speed and it melts and forms cement. So what they're doing now is they're brushing off all the extra powder so that you can see the final printed product inside.
We're kind of screwed.
I guess we're about to see if that works or not. So we're experimenting with creating hinged textiles, which in a way are sort of like chainmail. They have a hardened shoe on them. They're made of a hard material, but they're interlinked in such a way that they can move and flow, they can move when you freeze, they can move when you stretch, you can run in them, you can sit down in them, they're not a hard plastic cage around your body. There's a lot of garments that have been printed in the past that were giant sculptures, were printed in tiny, individual pieces of hand assembly. But if you do them as a necessity, you can 3D print it, that's how you make a traditional sculpture. What happens when we take techniques from computer graphics and mix them with techniques from artificial intelligence? How can we adapt simulations that biologists are using to understand how form and pattern emerge in nature? And the nervous system, those are the sort of experiments that we've been doing. And this draft is sort of our latest project, of combining engineering and science techniques with design and visual fabrication.
So that's a pretty cool video, what they're doing. Hey guys, how are you guys? Is there enough seats for everybody? Anywhere? So, again, this is just a really cool example of what they're printing now. Like, they took a big object. A lot of what stops printers, the capabilities, is how big an object can be when they print it, because printers are only this big. But by creating it hinged and putting it into a little ball and printing it off, they can print giant objects, which is like, really cool. But that was an example of the printer, laser printer in here. And selective laser method, from steam laser. So these are all different types of printers that are available. When you start getting into these ones, they become much more expensive than the FDM and the SLAs. They're typically a little bit more professional, like 10,000, 20,000. They cost a lot more. And if you guys want a copy of this presentation in the end, too, just let me know. I'll send it over to you. So those are basically the general types of printers that are available in the technology. And so here are the types of printers, the models that you'll see. There's on the one, you'll have a Cartesian, which is like the one we have out that's printing right now. The Ultimaker is a Cartesian printer. And the other one is a Delta, where it basically goes around an area. Instead of like having axes move like this, it just has one nozzle that moves in directions. And the Delta printer actually prints faster, and it prints taller objects. The Cartesian ones usually only are this big. With the Deltas, you can print objects that are as big as a leg or something like that, because they're much faster, and they're much finer actually in quality in what they can do. So those are basically the two types of models you'll see that you'll run across when printing processes normally. And so I just want to cover a little bit about 3D printer materials. They're coming out with new printer materials every week, basically. Like, what they're doing is they're adding stuff to plastics, and they're experimenting with you can print polycarbonate, you can print all sorts of random, like, things that are really, really cool. And each of the items has different things, characteristics that make it good for certain things. So, for example, the nylon is one of the more popular materials that are being used. And the reason it's so popular is because it's so strong. It's one of the strongest materials that you can print with now from one of the home models of like FDM printers. The next is PLA, which is what we actually use to print our 3D printed processes. You guys are using PLA too, yeah? And so these, you'll see PLA in a minute, you have a chance to touch them and look at them and that sort of thing. But what's cool about PLA is it's got a very low melting temperature. So even after you printed it, you can actually pour boiling water on it and form it and shape it to a specific shape that you're looking for. So you can print flat objects and then curve them around an arm or a hand or something after the fact, which is pretty cool. It is a little more brittle, but again, we use PLA. It's a pretty good material. The other is ABS. These three are the most popular printing materials in 3D printing world at the moment. And basically, ABS is oil-based, which is what makes ABS really kind of cool. Is that when you're done printing an object, if you look at these ones at the hand, you can see lines of each layer that was printed, like one at a time. You see those straight lines that go across. With the ABS, if you take acetone, if you take some regular acetone, and you rub it onto the plastic, it'll smooth it out perfectly smooth like a normal object. So it looks less like a printed object, and it's more round. So that's kind of one of the things. And ABS is also kind of nicer because it is much stronger than PLA. PLA is pretty brittle, you can break it, and that sort of thing. So it's a very popular one. What they're also printing with now is bronze and some metals. What they're doing is they're taking plastics and they're adding metals into the plastic so that they can ooze it out, and so that it melts and comes down, and you can safely print metal objects with a normal FDM printer. You can also print ceramics, is one of the things. And then we have some exotic filaments that are starting to come out where they're adding wood to plastics. So it looks like you printed a piece of wood, which is pretty cool. And it has some of the similar characteristics. You can stain it, like add paint to it and that sort of thing. So it's pretty cool. Elastomers are basically like elastics. So you can print rubbery materials that stretch and expand. Some of the 3D printed models actually use this material in their joints, so it automatically springs open like this. Which is pretty cool. And also, what they're starting to really push forward is conductive. So you can basically design electrical circuits into your hand. So when you're making robotics or something like that, it's actually quite, you can just print it rather than having to order your own printer board and stuff like that. And another thing is, they're doing magnetic stuff, so you can create magnetic objects now, which is pretty cool. And then carbon fiber is one of the more latest ones, which is just gives an enormous amount of strength that you can potentially use in the future, print full leg prosthetics with. We'll see how it goes. And like I said, every week they're adding new filaments to the lineup. Everybody's experimenting with this technology now all over the world. So there's going to be more on this list in the next week, and so forth and so on. So I wanted to just talk about 3D printer use in prostheses. This is from a robotics group in Japan. They're doing pretty cool stuff. But I just kind of wanted to talk about that next. And so this is why 3D printing and robotics are like the choice for prosthetics, basically. Because it's they're super cost effective. We can print one of these hands. I think your print. How much is your hand to print?
Just for the materials, yeah, $80.
Maybe
Just for the materials.
just for the material. It's $80. And for one of the Enable hands, and it's in the other room, we'll pass it around. We're printing them for about 2,000 rupees. They aren't as robust as this. This is nice and solid. They're not full featured, but you can also give somebody a hand for a much really inexpensive cost. What's also really cool about 3D printing is it's fully customizable. You can customize anything. If you've got a kid that really likes Batman or something, you can make it a really cool prosthesis for them. Yeah. So these are not quite as, they're not heavy duty or anything like that, but we print these for about 2,000 rupees, just for material. They're also fairly fast and easy to make. Once you have a design or a model, you can basically take the 3D model of anything and then scale it to size. So if you have a really big person, you can just stretch it a little bit, and then all of a sudden you're using the same model. And you don't have to create casts every single time or anything like that. It's really customizable and very easy. And for the same amount of money, you're getting a lot more functionality where you can start moving hands and moving individual fingers, and that sort of thing. And it's also really cool because the technology is evolving so fast. In the last few years alone, it's like gone, people all over the world have started designing robotic hands and 3D printed hands. And so it's starting to become a thing worldwide. And so the technology is going to continue to evolve, which means the functionality of prosthetics are only going to get better, the cost of manufacturing them are going to go down, and it's going to be exciting to see where the technology is going to go. And what's also pretty cool is that they're open source options, so you don't necessarily have to be a professional 3D modeler to print prostheses. You can print them with very little tech skills, and you can share it. It's kind of the community of people making open source designs that everybody can share, and so that's kind of a cool feature that makes it pretty awesome. So that's why we think 3D printing robotics and stuff is going to be kind of the way of the future. And so I just wanted to share another video with you. I don't know if you've watched this video yet, but this is pretty cool.
Okay, so walk me through what. Alright, so we have the flexible.
I don't know if you've seen this, but this is a pretty cool design.
Yeah, it's important when I'm wearing it all day. And then the carbon fiber.
Great, lightweight, high rigidity.
Exactly. And then I have my batteries, lithium ion.
Good choice.
Yeah,
For weight versus energy density.
definitely. And my hand is made of predominantly metal, plastic, and rubber. And there are 5 motors, and they are housed internally in the palm portion of the hand, which is great, because if you do have finger damage, you're not damaging a motor, which is a very expensive part.
Actually, because they're kind of spring loaded.
Yeah, it's really great to have, and it makes it look more natural too, when you're doing things to have it conform to what's going on. If I took my hand off and handed it to you,
I'm still holding your hand.
you're holding my hand. I'll hold it. Okay, so try to close your hand. There you go. And then open it. Like we're saying.
This is such a unique opportunity. Both this strong and this one.
You wanna hand me that?
Yep.
I'm gonna try to lock this in. You heard that?
Yeah, here's the click.
This is the dragon.
Wow. Okay.
I archery back then.
You are true.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Cool video. They're making some really cool stuff, in that video. And so that's kind of, again, why, and this is just one group of people doing this. There's a bunch of different people doing it all over the world. So that's it. And so I just wanted to talk about a little bit of the trends in prosthetic design and what people are working on today in different labs around the world. And so one of the trends that we're seeing is anthropomorphism. It's basically where instead of like, some of the designs don't look very much like human hands. They just are like claws and stuff or hooks. So